Mm. What do you believe that Jesus knew about humanity while he was here on earth?
Oh, yes. I think what Jesus knew is key to his genius and key, is really a key part of the mystery that surrounds him. Once you recognize the paleo-contact narratives in the Hebrew scriptures, you have to ask, did Jesus know that? Or was he so much a person of his generation that he believed what he was brought up to believe and then was able to transcend that belief somehow? Or does he know everything we know about the ancient Sumerians, Babylonians, Akkadians, and Assyrians? Did he know that those God stories are based on the story of something else? And I think it's difficult to answer definitively, but what I would say is this, that Jesus does not identify himself with the Yahweh stories and with Yahwistic law. He distances himself from those things. So you read the Gospel of Matthew, and he is a counterpart to Yahweh. You've heard it said in the past, I say this. Moses told you this, I say this. In the law it says this, but I say this. Jesus is presenting an alternative way to the way of Yahweh. And then he makes some odd references to Yahweh that make it sound like he doesn't have a high opinion of him at all. So he says in one place, it's Matthew 6, Luke 11. What kind of father, if their children asked for food or drink, would give them a stone or would give them serpents? And it sounds random to us when he says that, but his original audience knew exactly what he was talking about. And that was the moment when the children of Israel are starving in the desert. Yahweh's provided them with emergency rations of something they don't even know what it is. Manna means we don't know what it is. They've got fed up of it and they're complaining. They want proper food. And Yahweh gives them a stone for water and snakes as punishment. And Jesus is really saying, what kind of father does that? You evil lot wouldn't do that to your kids, he says, would you? And so he's really striking at the heart of the idea that Yahweh is any kind of God or father. And then in John's gospel, he's talking to the Jewish leaders and he speaks about your father, the devil, who was a liar and a murderer and a liar from the beginning, the father of all lies. Well, who can he possibly be talking about? And then when Jesus talks about God, never once does he use the word Yahweh for God. He uses the Greek word, theos. And the meaning of theos is given for us in a beautiful way by the Apostle Paul in Acts 17. He's speaking to a non-religious audience, a non-Jewish audience. And he says, by theos, I mean the source of the cosmos and everything in it, that in which we all live and move and have our being, of which we're all offspring, which is a beautiful vision of God. It's a vision of no separation, where you can't put a piece of paper between me and theos, the source, where the idea is that my consciousness is a participation in source consciousness. My intelligence is an emanation of source intelligence, where I should fully expect to be thinking divine thoughts, having divine experiences, where there's no separation. So I love that quote from Paul. That's what theos means. And when Jesus talks about God, he talks about theos, who he addresses as pater, father, or in the Lord's Prayer, Father, the one being in the heavens, just to clarify, and then whom he addresses as Abba. That's Jesus' language for God. Never once do we hear the word Yahweh on his lips. And by the time the early church are thinking through the implications of that, they are realizing Jesus was not a Yahwist, didn't teach Yahwism, and that Christianity wasn't going to be built on Yahwism. And so in Acts 15, they hold a meeting clarifying that decision for the church from that time to this. Colossians 2:14 talks about the written code having been cancelled. So in that sense, I think Jesus knew Yahweh was not God. I think it's possible that Jesus knew as much international thought as those who wrote for him. And they knew Plato like the back of their hands. And Plato's worldview is that we are earthlings, but we've been visited by powerful others who've done terraforming and who've adapted us, made us more intelligent, more conscious. The early church fathers had no problem with any of that belief. They didn't see that as being in any way in conflict with what they saw and heard in Jesus. So it's not a definitive answer to whether Jesus was into paleo-contact. My suspicion is he knew at least as much as I do on this topic.